So I guess everything wasn't sunshine and rainbows from the Washington Commanders 2024 draft class, as this specific player has been released just 1 year after being drafted by the organization. Let's talk about it.
Shout out to Juan Gotti talking sports. You know what it is.
Shout out Juan Gotti talking sports.
The way that we live is not for everybody.
Nah, that ain't it, y'all.
How do you think the rest of Jaden Daniels' career is going to go? If we're, 6, 7 games into Jaden Daniels' career, and he's already milking injuries? Like,
stop saying my name, you dick riding bastard. I love the way she move it, shake it on me. When she cry for him, and Shawty is the winner. You can tell that Shawty's no beginner. She's confident.
So ladies and gentlemen, before we get any further into today's video, I want to let you guys know yesterday I had an interview with Mark Klaus of Team President. Quick little cameo inside the video, and I don't know if notifications don't go out anymore or if people simply just don't rock with me no more. You know what I'm saying? Because that was a very banger video that I feel like a lot of you all would have enjoyed, and I'm just not sure if those things didn't transpire the right way. Now again, if it didn't, then make sure you got the bell notification on and make sure you're sharing the channel out, because we even got Mikey Sammer still in the video, and Jeremy Reeves and Ja'Cory Brooks as well. So go ahead, check that video out if you haven't already. But getting into today's video, Washington made a plethora of roster moves, and one roster move and specifically that I wouldn't say shocked me, because I think a lot of fans saw the writing on this wall, especially when having to make space for other players at other positions. This doesn't necessarily come as a shocker, as they released Dominique Hampton, former 5th-round draft pick just a season ago, in that stacked, or I guess we considered superstar status 2024 draft class with Jaden Daniels and Mikey Sammer still. He's gone now. We're back. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Juan Gotti Command Extra post-game show is back for yet another season. Following each and every Washington Commanders game, call into the number 240-804-7327 to have your voice heard on the show. Win, lose, or draw, happy, upset, or mad, make sure you call into that number, because I want to hear from you after every single game.
I know who ain't getting that 6th receiver spot, though. That's KJ Osborne, bro. that man is cheap, bro.
Now, does that mean he won't make it onto this practice squad? I'm not too sure. Maybe he can come back around on the practice squad, but he's been released, and the reason why I'm kind of hesitant about him coming back on the practice squad is how soon they released him. They didn't release him after the second preseason game, after the third preseason game, because they had to just trim off fat and they had to get the roster down to 53, and they could potentially bring him back on the practice squad. They released him with 2 preseason games to go and still a few weeks out until we have to cut down the roster officially to 53. Now, you may be like, Juan, where is the disconnect with Dom Hampton? Well, yesterday I was out there at training camp, and watching Dom Hampton, he didn't do much. He really didn't do much, didn't make any exciting plays, didn't really drive home a reason for him to stay around. And that was a little bit of a shocker to me, because he was supposed to be this versatile player, right? This linebacker, this safety potentially even, right? And this kind of Buffalo nickel. And I've kind of grown I wouldn't say hatred, but a dislike for that term Buffalo nickel, or he can play safety linebacker role, because it seems as if it never works out, especially here in Washington. I even remember going back to the Landon Collins days where he in fact played well as a linebacker, but as a safety he was pretty much at the end of his career there, so it really was no use of him there as well. And he didn't adapt well to playing the linebacker position. He just didn't want to do it, regardless of how good he was at it. And Cam Curl was pretty solid as the Buffalo nickel, but he's no longer here in Washington. And with Dom Hampton again, I just have to assume that maybe he just wasn't working out at either positions, and they couldn't find anywhere to put him, because remember in the offseason, Coach Joe Witt Jr. said, I have to find ways to get all these guys on the field, or at least opportunities. And when it comes to a guy like Jeremy Reeves, that stood true. Because yesterday out there at Ashburn, at training camp, guess what? Jeremy Reeves was running with the ones. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. All Pro Revo, the best special teams player that we've seen in Washington outside of obviously Tressway, right? But one of the best special team players in the NFL. Yes, first team reps. And I get it. One, it's training camp, it's practice. They can try different looks. Well, why wasn't Dom Hampton involved in those looks? Right? Why wasn't he a part of first team reps and second team reps even, right? It's something that was there. We'll figure out later whether it was an injury thing or something of that nature, but it definitely sucks that Dom Hampton has been released. We'll keep an eye out to see if he potentially comes back in the practice squad. But again, you look at that draft class, and it's funny because a lot of people have started to question the rest of that draft class. I know the draft class is favored and superstar status because of the two selections of Jaden Daniels and Mikey Samerstill, but you look beyond that and you start to question what these other picks are, right? You got Johnny Newton, who I think he'll be fine this season, especially with him being healthy. He showed some flashes in the preseason game. One of the lone standouts that I felt obviously, showed some flashes in that game. You look at Jordan McGee. That's another guy that I think has all the talent in the world, and they love Jordan McGee, man. They do, and I see why. He can play. It's just he has to stay healthy, man. I really don't like the territory that he's headed due to that sole fact. It's not he can't get the playbook down. It's not that he can't adjust at the line of scrimmage and call out plays as a starting linebacker, right? It's just your availability is your best ability, and he's hurt already. Again, we don't think it's a significant injury, but it was significant enough to hold him out of the joint practice and or preseason game. And I think a guy like Jordan McGee needs this preseason because he needs the extra reps. He's already missed a lot of time last year due to injuries. And a guy like me and a guy like rest of the fan base, they can't keep defending how good you are or can be if you're not out there. Then you look at Ben Sinnott, who, in my opinion, had another good showing yesterday at practice, but also, even more important than that, in the game. Even though Sam Hartman couldn't connect with him because he was missing passes like crazy, Sam Hartman, or Ben Sinnott, I should say, was getting open, creating separation, doing exactly what I wanted to see him do in year 2 in terms of growth. So the jury's still out on him, of course, and the jury's still out on the rest of this draft class as a whole, right? We don't want to just give up on him after 1 year, but it is, some questions to raise an eyebrow at when you cut Dom Hampton, when Joy McGee is not really healthy. A lot of fans are down on Luke McCaffrey, and although I am, a big Luke fan, and I feel like they don't give him enough opportunities to prove himself, something like yesterday where he had a drop pass in the back of the end zone where it was kind of right in the breadbasket. We can't have those, right? You gotta make those kind of plays if you want opportunities to speak for themselves in the game. The quarterback gotta trust you. So outside of JD5 and Mike Samerstill at this point, that whole 2024 draft class is still kind of in question. Am I giving up on it? Not by any means, right? I still want to see what a healthy Johnny Newton looks like for a full season. I still want to see what a healthy Jordan McGee looks like at some point. I still want to see what Ben Sinnott looks like at some point. Of course, Brandon Coleman he's fine in my opinion. I think he's a starting left guard, has the potential in the world to be a damn good left guard. But again, his issue as well is health concerns. But if I had to rank the three, I guess, least concerned players out of that draft class, it'll be JD5, Mikey, and Brandon Coleman, as those guys seem to have carved out roles, significant roles, I should say, on this team. The rest of the class, it's still the jury's out, and there's one guy down. But we'll see if he comes back in the end of camp, and maybe he's on the practice squad or may have you. But at this point, Dom Hampton is no longer on the Washington Commanders. And looking at more of the other roster moves that the Washington Commanders decided to make today as well, is they also decided to bring in some DB help. They tried out like 14 players, and they signed cornerback Isang Basie and cornerback Antonio Hamilton Sr. and linebacker Duke Riley as well. They released defensive end Vilmia Foku Jr. and cornerback Allen George and linebacker Dominique Hampton. They placed tackle Lucas Niang and Kevin Seymour on reserve / injury list. Now we know Lucas Niang, he tore his ACL yesterday, and he's an interesting name because he has a lot of talent. He truly does, right? And he played valuable snaps for Kansas City and Pat Mahomes, right? Like he played on those teams. But again, his thing is he's injury, and he sustained yet another one, unfortunately. And when it comes to a guy like Kayvon Seymour, remember last year he was supposed to be a special teams dominant guy, right? But he got suspended for, I want to say, like 8 games, and now he's on the reserve / injured list. I don't know if that means the season's over. I don't know what exactly it means. I don't know if he's actually sustained a significant injury. But it definitely is interesting that he's on that list as well. And as far as the other cornerbacks, I think they're just bringing them in, potential camp bodies, potential guys that see what they have, maybe practice squad competition, and giving them opportunities to show what they can do. But yeah, man, this video was pretty much about former 5th round pick Dom Hampton, as I know a lot of people actually loved the draft pick by him and wanted to see what in fact he can do. But at this point, it looks like nothing for the Washington Commanders. But we'll see how his future holds, as he could potentially be back on the practice squad, but only time will tell. That being said, as always, me and boy Juan Gotti, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, help the Washington Commanders on the road to 11,000 subscribers. So we greatly appreciate if you can reach that goal as soon as possible. Thank you so much. You have a blessed one. Stay safe, easy out there. Peace.
Never gave up one day. Ballin' like I'm Deshaun, throw the bomb, G. That's IG, my jersey never seen a line.